Alright, now, I know that things have been a little bit confusing lately with me promising certain things and not delivering. Just know that I do other things once in a while and I don't follow through and fulfill with certain promises I make, and that's natural for everybody to do that at certain points in their life. I don't know, I've never had an evening where I've just watched videos and just did that. And so I had that evening last night, so it's good. And when I just want to say one thing about binge watching, real quick. Say you're watching a video of someone, of a certain channel, and it's really long, like it's a long video, then it would be binge watching and exhausting the content, but then it wouldn't be because of the length of one video. But if you were to see one video and then another video, then that's what I would consider that. Even if the video is really, really long, that's how the video is made. So I don't really feel particularly guilty about sitting in that one sitting and watching the whole video if I wanted to do that. Because that's how it's made in the first place. So there could be a really long video of Nadia Shah that I watched, and I feel guilty about exhausting this person that I'm watching. Just saying, but if I were to see just one video after another, which are really, really short, of just one creator, then I feel guilty for abusing and binge watching them and sort of exhausting and tiring them out. And that is why I've taken a break from watching Deborah Silverman for almost a month. I decided, I've felt the guilt, I need a little break, and I'm coming back, and I'm following her content, her posts and videos. And she'll be coming to the Edmonton, actually, later this month. As much as I'm really, obviously tomorrow at 10 in the morning, Colette Baron Reed will be arriving with her new Oracle deck. And I'll have to run next week or so, maybe I'll get that deck and the Dreamweaver's Oracle deck. But she'll be coming with that tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. We'll get into some themes, and I think I'm going to do something that I have never done in a long time. I'm going to show a Scooby-Doo episode tomorrow. It is going to be, I really want to do this, I've seen it before, it is going to be in the living room over there. It's going to be a Scooby-Doo episode of the Dreamweaver. It's called the Dreamweaver because that's what the Oracle deck is called. Shallow Reasoning 101. But there has to be some kind of connection. And maybe we can look at the similarities and differences between Colette's deck, what that is all about, and what Scooby-Doo, that episode is all about. I have not shown an episode of Scooby-Doo in many years, and this summertime, because of Venus retrograde happening, I think I'm going to do that again, because I want to bring back what was, but something fresh and new. Especially the retrograde planets, especially if they're retrograde in fire signs. Fire signs are action, creativity. Leo's a sign that is about empowering yourself to do whatever you want to do creatively, even if a planet is retrograde. So don't let that limit you. You live and you learn. If you start something and doesn't work out and you don't enjoy it after, or or if you don't feel inspired all of a sudden because this planet's retrograde, then that's how you feel and that's what you want to do. Don't let a planet retrograde in a sign deter you from starting and initiating. And it's probably often that there are sort of limited, there always are going to be those limits and those blocks, but it's what you want to do. It's whether or not you want to take action. And maybe it's often that during when there may have been a planet retrograde or two, and I may have been inspired to start something. Because I felt that inspiration. And if it crashes and burns, you live and you learn, but obviously it's just coincidence. But, Venus, retrograde in Leo, even if it's going retrograde, if you feel bursts of enthusiasm, especially to do things that you did in the past, but you want to do, what's the word? Revamp or retrograde. So you're taking something that's retro in the past. It's, retro means back, and in the past, what happened in the past, and making radical, rad, rad. That's cool. That's modern, new, exciting, and that's Uranus energy is innovation. It's linked to that. And so that's what I want to do. So that's going to be a time where if you feel inspired to write a song or do something super creative, then, take action and take advantage. And that's probably what I did that summer, in that time period. I probably did things that I want to do that over again. And I want to show that episode. It's been such a long time and I'm older now, so I wonder if it may feel a little funny to I don't know, to watch that again, but we'll talk about that. Colette's lunar cycle, lunar phase is changing. So it is changing. Her progressed moon has been in Sagittarius, almost opposite my progressed moon. It's been in Gemini for February 2020 through August of last year. It's been in Gemini. Moved into Cancer. I have been feeling it, but it's almost as if it's numbing. I mean, probably this fall I felt, down and depressed dealing with these sort of patterns and these types of things. Especially in December of last year, in this whole Mars retrograde season. I think coming out of this, I have a whole story to tell about how my hands, Gemini rules the hands, have been really dry. They're much better now. And we're still in the retrograde season, and Mars is going to technically leave shadow on March 15th, so that's going on. We're not going to move on from the retrograde season. Mars will change signs into Cancer on March 25th, so that's still going on. But the whole retrograde season, for me personally, has been about these habits that I've been feeling, about the checking and insecurities and working through uncertainty and sort of what propels me mentally to act and feed these kind of patterns. And don't give energy into life support, and don't nurture what you don't want to grow. Otherwise, if you're giving those plants water, food, sunlight or whatever, they're going to grow. So which plants do you want them to grow? Or do you want to see weeds in your garden? Nobody wants to see weeds in their garden. So that's something to think about. And so what's also been occurring is the squares to Neptune in Pisces. So the confusion, the dismotivation, getting distracted, getting scattered, that's been sort of going on. And the guilt and the remorse that I have for stuff in the past. I don't feel as guilty for things I've done in the past now that last fall sort of set in from the binge watching and compulsively going through one channel after the other. I've spoken about that. Sort of started out, I adjusted to it, and then as the fall progressed, it just got worse. And then, sort of in January, I was still feeling it. Now I'm not feeling it as much. Maybe that wave of guilt from that might come back around. Another thing I feel regretful over is because there's going to be a final square of Mars and Neptune around March 12th. So, in several days, so that energy is sort of coming back for a third time. I really have to think about last Christmas. What was going on. And obviously, the weather looks really, really different now than it was then. And we had a white Christmas. And I was just feeling really down about the patterns that I continued to get into and the sort of those kind of feelings of insecurity and the OCD feelings that I was working with, and it was really taking over my life and my enjoyment of so many things. The guilt also from binge watching videos, doing all those kind of things. Going through one channel after the other, binge watching stuff, I was still feeling that guilt. So it wasn't my favorite, Christmas of all time, and I really felt like I wish, looking back, I'm going, wow, if I had only just fixed those problems, maybe October, a couple months ago, then I would be at a better place then, like I am now, at a better place with that. But I wish I was in a better place with that. And I wish that I was this far along the path and journey of healing now than I was in December and around Christmas. And I regret not enjoying it more and being so consumed into those themes and that reality day in and day out of that being a huge part of what I was thinking about and huge concern. And I have really done some work on myself over those months, and I'm better with it now than I was in the past. Still sort of having a couple little things, but I really think I've come a long way from where I was a couple months ago. And hopefully it continues that way, but I do regret the Christmas and not making the most of it and not enjoying it. And, every day I felt like, well, here's another day gone by that I'm just taking for granted. And I really had real issues, and because of how, that my schedule was going to college and DMAT classes and all those kind of things, is only 3 days a week. And with that extra time, it's allowed me to put more of my focus upon the problems in my 6th house daily routine area of life, my 4th house, my home and family areas of life. And so, more focus has been placed on that as opposed to getting out in the world and doing all those things. And maybe on the same side of the coin, that's a good thing, because then you can work through that and face it and get better and really move on the journey to self-improvement then that I'm at home so much and I'm working with this right now, so that's good. So, I do want to talk about a huge customary unit that we're going to be getting into, which is based off of a book, and I will get into that later. I will say that there's going to be a new astrologer coming to my Menton who hasn't come to my Menton before. Her name is Catherine Urban, and she has a YouTube channel. She calls them astrology shots for every day, every couple of days. She puts this aspect is happening, this new moon or full moon or eclipse is happening, this planet changing signs. She has been pregnant recently. She had a baby born January 22nd, which was the day that Joseph I don't know why I keep pronouncing that with an SH in it. Bonstetter, came to my Menton, and Uranus was stationing direct. That was a day after the Aquarius new moon going on. And I can say that because I also do videos and content about astrology, so I'm not really copying necessarily. But so she had a video that I was watching where she was talking about her pregnancy and the astrology of what she was feeling and what was going on in her chart at the time, and how it was. And she's doing a series talking about family, different family members, their astrology, especially the birth of her son, for recently. So she has done that. She has a video that she's come out with about Saturn and Pisces, going on. So you can check out her channel on Catherine Urban for Stormy Grace, who has not been to my Menton since August this year. She has something called the YouTube Astrology Academy, and where she has people speaking and giving lectures about astrological topics, just like Nadia Shah for Synchronicity University. People giving talks and lectures about things, except, it does involve money. With YouTube, it's free, and I'm sure that the people who contribute to the free YouTube Astrology Academy get paid. I'm sure that there's something with that. Maybe. But she was doing a presentation on the lunar nodes, talking about them, so you can check that out. Just put in Catherine Urban, the lunar nodes, and you'll probably find a really long video, seeing the channel Stormy Grace of where it's coming out of, and then you're opening up the video, and it's a lecture about the lunar nodes. So she did that. That's how I first, that's my first video that I have seen of her, and that was last summer. Then I was seeing her, and then I discovered her for the first time. So she'll be coming probably towards the end of March. I'm thinking around the last couple of days of March, beginning of April. So that's when she'll be coming to the Menton. We do obviously know that this month is huge. We have Saturn moving into Pisces, full moon in Virgo going on. I would encourage you to be aware of the energy of what's happening, of how it feels. I mean, my prediction is it's going to be probably really subtle, really quiet, but maybe emotional on an internal level. So it's interesting, Jupiter in 2021 and 22 is in Pisces, really benefic, so express the more benefic sides of Pisces in a Jupiterian way. Now Saturn's moving into Pisces, so that is going to be kind of another story. It's similar, but it's another story because of the planet involved. And so now we're talking about Saturn, and it will be there for an even longer time than Jupiter. And Saturn's going to do the same thing that Jupiter did, coming into Aries, back out of Pisces, moving back into Aries. It did that 2022. Saturn's going to do that in 2025 and 2026. So that's going on. Yeah, and so with that, I've mentioned the Saturn return. I've mentioned all those kind of things happening. And, you know, it is going to be a time where you may be reevaluating how you define spirituality. That's probably going to be one of the biggest, most significant things of that whole cycle. For those experiencing the Saturn return, Saturn's karma, and what goes around comes around, and now it's time to really get serious about your life and how you want to live it, your connection to the higher power, believing in yourself, self-love, blending the worlds from the spiritual, the immaterial to the material, coming back to reality with all those ideas, get the clarity needed, all those kind of things with Saturn, because we are talking about an earthy energy, and really earthy energy in a sign that's not too practical, not too earth-bound, even though Pisces rules the feet, which is interesting. I haven't heard too much about that. One thing I did say about is getting your bare feet on the earth might be a really good thing that you can do for yourself during the next 2.5 years. And I highly recommend doing that. And so I was thinking the other day, I could go on about Saturn and Pisces, but I did another video about that. It's super long. You can see it. It'll premiere on March 4th. Of course, the premiere for the Amenton, it'll premiere on YouTube March 4th, but then for the Amenton it will be March 5th at 2 in the afternoon. That'll premiere in the theater here, and I've spoken about that. I've given an announcement about it. There'll be snacks and drinks for you to help yourself with, to enjoy that video for those who are interested to come to that. Okay, now Saturn returns. This is where the thing I mentioned earlier about the custom unit is going to come into play here. So, I was thinking about Saturn return, and I was feeling really interested in it the other day. And a couple of the things that you need to know is that Saturn marks the huge change phase in your life, and it returns, you have your Saturn return at times which mark 3 almost perfect chapters in your life. 3 almost perfect, depending upon how long you live. But 3 almost perfect chapters, with the end one being the end of your life. Because in the old system, Saturn was the limit. There was no other planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. There was only Saturn. So that's how we classified, and that's how the astrological system was. Saturn was the limit. Saturn was the boundary. Pam Gregory has mentioned that in her Saturn and Pisces video. Uranus came into the picture for the French Revolution. But maybe let's pretend that Saturn is the only planet for a moment. And it's really interesting that Saturn returns not between the ages 18 to 20 years old, but from the ages 28 to 30 years old. That's interesting. And you're thinking about the Great Depression in American history, 1929, 29 years, you have your Saturn return, 29 and a half years, 28 through 30 years, depending upon you were born in your certain Saturn cycle. And Tori Alamos has a song about the Saturn return, unintentionally and not officially, but she has a song about the Saturn return. It's called 29 Years. There has got to be some parallels between all the lyrics of that song and the Saturn return. And I'm actually going to play that song for you here in this meeting, because it's huge. And Saturn return takes about 29 years. And so that's a long, very long stretch of time. And they mark the ending of one stage of your life, divided into 3 almost perfect stages of your life. You end one cycle, you begin another cycle, all the way around until you come back to 58 to 60. That's the second Saturn return. And then you move to 88 to 90. That's when you are very old, and that's when I don't need to get into it because it's super obvious. I didn't want to even say it here. I did say it on the video because I'm not going to say anything that I am not comfortable saying, and that I can't, and that it doesn't feel right when I even push myself to say that. Yeah, I'm more extroverted than I would have been had I been little, and it was just predetermined that I would be on YouTube and doing all the stuff I'm doing. It was just, I feel like it was just meant to be, and it is, and it will continue to be for some time. So, and I'm not afraid of showing who I am, because obviously, if I was so afraid I wouldn't show off, but especially because I was just watching a live stream from Brecker Goldsmith, and it was all about standing, being courageous, going beyond your fears, going beyond your limitations, it's about rising out of fear and being who you want to be and doing what you want to do, and that's the really uplifting message that she had in this live stream she did. The Great Reset Must See. You'll find that huge shift live stream that she did on her YouTube channel. I have not watched her since January 19th. She was also somebody that I binge watched because she had reels on Instagram that she did, and I watched one after the other, and then I felt guilty for that, so I took more than a month off from that. So anyway, all right. So going back to Saturn returns, 29 years. Let's just say that that's karmic, especially because it's 29 degrees. Like, think about it. 29 degrees of a zodiac sign. The sun can only go 29 degrees. That's the limit on that zodiac sign. So, the sun can move to Aries from 1 degree. You start on March 20th, March 21st. You end on April 20th. That's going to be going on. So, this Aries season is going to start out with major new beginnings. And then it's almost as if we're going to look at the benefic side of Aries, the positive side of the sign. And then we're going to get into some more shadow intense material on April 20th. When we have that straggler happening at 29 degrees of the sign. But so there's 29 degrees of a sign. And it takes 29 years for Saturn to come back around. I'd say that the 29th degree is karmic. It is the final degree where, the anoretic or critical degrees, you're sort of summing everything up, tying up loose ends, that things are coming to a head at that degree. It's super intense. Some shadows of the sign can be expressed, and it's the karmic time when you have your Saturn return. I've never had it. So, I'm going to be honest and say that, it's obvious that I never had it before and I never experienced it. But now that I'm aware of it, right now, I could be ready 10 years later, from now, 10 years and 2 months exactly from now, I can be ready for that Saturn return. I did the math and I was doing research and I measured it, and I think it's going to be June 3rd. 10 years from now, that I'm going to have that Saturn return. So, I'm 18 and I had my nodal return. 10 years, Saturn return. And because you have to wait till 28 to 29 to 30, it takes a long time, and that means it'll probably be really, intense, and I hope that by that time I will be really responsible and going off and pursuing what I want to do and all those kind of things when that time comes, so that it's not so intense. And that's what I am going to be doing in preparation for going to the principal's office on June 3rd, 2033, because on June 3rd, 10 years from now, I'm going to be going into the principal's office. As Deborah Silverman talks about it. That's her metaphor as Saturn is the high school principal. June 3rd, that particular date, I'm going to be heading into the principal's office. And, using her words, not mine, we're going to be having a little chat about how far I've come and what am I going to do with the second half for moving forward in my life. And, Earth is going to be high, it's going to be super serious, there's a bunch of things. You can see videos on YouTube about Saturn return. I'm not going to show you a video about that per se here, but you can do that. You can certainly do that. I was watching the Saffron Sage, as it'd be an astrology YouTube channel. She had a video about the Saturn return. It's pretty good. And you can see several things on your Saturn return, but it does take a long time, 28 to 29 years, until that